Here it is, 2, 1. Hi, everyone. Dom Famularo here, and I'm excited to be back again for Mapex on my Monday afternoon schedule of interviews. This is exciting. I've had so many great artists that have done from these past several months that I've learned about, and I get to meet them and meet old friends and have a great conversation and hopefully inform all of you about these great drummers that are out there that are making a living at this incredible passion that we have. And today, I've got from Canada. Now, just so you know, here in New York on Long Island, we've got a massive storm going on with wind and trees falling down and rain. It's incredible. Stuff's happening. So if we happen to lose power, I'll try to bring you all back in or we'll reschedule because it is absolutely crazy out there. I love it. But today from Canada, from our wonderful sister country up in the north here in the U.S., from Canada, we've got the great, great Jeff Towers. Please welcome Jeff. Let me bring him into the show here. Yeah, Jeff, there you are, man. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
To have you here. Now, you're in your studio. Whereabouts in Canada are you?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
In Calgary. I love Calgary. Fantastic, all right? And you've always lived there?
Yeah, this has been home base for quite a few years, yeah.
Boy, Jeff, you've been involved in the music industry, performing and teaching and managing. You've been involved in many, many areas of the music industry. And I want to kind of tap into all of that. But I want everyone to kind of find out, first of all, what got you involved with drumming? Where did it start? Where did music enter your life? How did this whole thing come about?
I started playing when I was about 13. So I was a little late to the game for a lot of the people that have been doing it, since they were 2 and 3. There wasn't any real music in my family other than playing the radio and stuff like that. So I was having some anger issues when I was a kid, and drums were what I was pointed to. And it's been a saving grace for everything in my life. It's brought me so much joy, given me a huge creative outlook and a creative outlet to express myself and relieve a lot of my stresses in life.
Well, I tell you, that's actually a very, very good point. And many of us younger students of the art form had a lot of energy, and we had we hyperactive in what we do. And drums really has been an incredibly healthy outlet, as it was for me too when I was younger. And even with a child with low self-esteem, when I started playing drums, it lifted me up and even redirects any kind of a challenges that we have as far as energy, whether it's just sheer energy or anger challenges. That really is a very, very positive result of what you've been able to do with this.
Oh, fully. It's brought me so many opportunities and obviously over a period of time. It wasn't instantly. It took a lot of practice and it took a lot of dedication to it. But definitely, it's been a wonderful thing. It's even become a career on multiple sides of my life. So it's pretty neat.
Boy, so when you were younger and you got involved with drums, did you immediately get a drum set? Was it something that slowly evolved?
Yeah, it sort of evolved into doing that. I ended up getting just a beater of a kit, an old. At the time, I didn't know it was actually worth a lot of money, and I wrecked it. But it was a Star drum kit, which was a pre-Tama. And of course, I didn't like the sparkle. The sparkle was not cool. Now sparkle is like one of the things that I'm gravitated to. So I ended up refinishing it and butchering the drum kit. Find out later that it was worth like $3,000 to $5,000.
Oh my Lord!
It happens. It happens.
It happened to all of us. I've made several mistakes like that too with some older kits that I used to have for sure, which would have been extremely valuable now. Mm-hmm. So you get this kit, you start to practice, you start to play. Did you start with lessons right away, or did you play first at all just to kind of get a feel for it?
I didn't have lessons in the formal sense of a lesson. I had music class when I was in junior high. I had this one teacher named Mr. Peely, who absolutely, I'm sure I drove him nuts because I would sneak in at lunch and put the headphones on and try to play the best bastardized version of John Bonham I could. And the kid that was there was definitely not ready for that kind of a pounding. And I'm sure, I know for a fact, he used to yell at me all the time about it. He goes, "You're never going to get anywhere if you just put your headphones on and do it. You got to learn the rudiments." So we dove into the rudiments from there. And that's the story of the beginning anyways.
Well, so you got some guidance. So with that, you started studying the rudiments. Were there any books that you started to use at all, or?
Yeah, the syncopation book, that was my go-to for a long time. In sales, I really was gravitated to Jim Chapin and his stuff, and of course you as well
Yeah.
in there, and that changed things. That really changed things. That used to be my main video that I would sell, the Jim's video, the classic, and that would be what I would use when I'm selling a drum kit. That's the first thing you would get is that video. Watch this, then do this, and it was like a life changer for sure.
Well, it's amazing when you think about these legends that are no longer with us. You know, you mentioned the great Jim Chapin and these players. They played all their life playing drums as they were, you know, younger and more mature. And then when they got older, they stepped on. I mean, I knew Jim was playing actively up until he died at at almost 90 years young.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys played and they loved it. And they wore their passion for their music, on their chests. You know, it was just incredible to see these guys play. So here you are, you're a young kid, you're watching this now. You had mentioned John Bonham. Was Bonham a part of the influence in those early days?
Oh yeah, for sure. John Bonham is still part of the influence. He's like ingrained in my fabric of my playing and way I approach things. For sure, I would say that he's number one influence for sure.
So you started listening to Zeppelin at an early age. Is that what it was? Or
Yeah. I was exposed to Zeppelin probably when I was about 12, 13, and that was the beginning of the drum thing. And I didn't know what I was attracted to on it. I just knew there was something there. And then as I got a drum kit and realized the power and the movement of it, it really kind of opened things up. I used to play along with a record player, and like every kick drum hit, the thing would skip. It would drive me nuts, but I still did it. Like I pushed and pushed and pushed and coming up with different ways to make it work, because I didn't have a lot of money at the time and I didn't have a lot of the right gear. So I had to, beg, borrow, and steal my way into making it work the way I needed it to.
You know, Jeff, what I love about that story is the fact that that's the message we want to send out to so many other drummers that are listening in and that will listen into future generations as this is aired continually on Facebook and Mapex's YouTube channel, is the fact that even without a lot of money and without a lot of funds and without the highest end of the gear and without all this crazy stuff, you still found, because of your passion and drive, to study the instrument and research it and play along to records. I mean, that's what we did when we put these LPs onto a turntable and we played along out of the speakers. It was an amazing time, right?
Absolutely. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I still, with the future now with using iPads and streaming songs, I mean, it's unbelievable the access we have now. So you could learn stuff and see videos from like the 70s, the 60s, 50s, 40s of all of these guys and pull all of that in. Whereas when I started and when you started, there wasn't any of that, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what an advantage it is now. It's exciting.
It really is. Well, first of all, when I started, you were probably not even born then. So that's a whole nother generation of what we really didn't have at those times. And what's amazing about it is the fact that even with the challenges that are there, we made it happen. Now, you're right. The advantages that the young generation has today is totally beyond my comprehension. Incredible. From your computer, you can type in anyone's name and bring up footage. What a resource center they have now to learn from. It's pretty powerful.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I mean, there's no limits on what you can do and who you can talk to now too. I mean, reaching out to your heroes as a drummer and, being able to talk to them. And there's no, I'll never meet that person or I'll never talk to that person and express how much of an influence they are on me. That wall is completely gone now.
Yeah.
It's both exciting and terrifying, really.
Well, you're right. It can be overwhelming for sure, which is pretty amazing. So now you're playing drums, you're listening to Bonham. Was there anybody else, band-wise or drummer-wise, that was influencing you?
At the time, Phil Collins, for sure. I was really into Phil Collins. More so Phil Collins, the pop Phil Collins than the Genesis stuff. but I did get exposure to both because of the crossover that was happening there.
Yeah.
And then even this past year, I worked for Steve Hackett and Greg Blundell as a production assistant with Live Nation. And, I got to check out his kid and have a bit of a hang with him. So that was pretty awesome.
How?
And definitely players, unbelievable. He's an unbelievable player.
It's so great to have these players that are out there today playing at such a high level and influencing so many people. It really is very, very exciting time to be alive. It really, really is.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So you're doing this here. So now you're hearing. So was Neil Peart at all? Being a Canadian, was Rush a part of your life at that point?
Yeah, Rush was definitely an influence. I was never really. This is going to sound awful. And here's the biggest reason why. I worked for Rush a couple of times as a production assistant, and I love the guys and I love the crew and I love the music, but I was never ever really like, I want to play that because I was coming from a different idea. The bottom side is more groove oriented. Yeah. Didn't want to get into the massive drum kits. I wanted a 4-piece kit, something like this, and just go with it. Yeah. And that was kind of my mentality right off the top. So Rush wasn't really musically appealing to me, although I see the huge value in it. And again, I love the guys. They were amazing. As a band, amazing.
It's really amazing how there are such deep fans of everyone, whether it's Neil Peart or Phil Collins or even Bonham. How the legacy of what they've played continues on and continues to reach new drummers generation after generation after generation, which is, this to me is just so, amazing to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is. It's really beautiful. And, you get pulled from so many different sides. There might be little things from fills that maybe you don't like the entire layout of it, but that one fill is totally your bag, and that's what you want to use on whatever song. So pulling from everything is kind of the key, I think.
Well, I like that theory. I mean, it's as I say, I want to steal from everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. Borrow. We'll say borrow because stealing sounds. It's like.
Well, it's how you look at it. I mean, borrowing almost implies you're going to give it back. And when I take a lick from someone, I'm not giving it back. I'm taking ownership of it. Stealing is ownership, man. I'm taking that and I'm keeping it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So here you are. So you're listening to Bonham and these bands. When was the first, get together of musicians that you started to play in a band together?
It didn't happen until several years later. I was about 19 when I started playing like bar shows and stuff like that. And the drinking age here is 18, so I was legal. Knowing nothing and going into it with an absolute I don't know what I'm doing, and it was a cluster for quite a while. And then, after a while, you end up getting that groove and you're figuring it out and you're learning how to play live with people. And then even more so, learning how to play in the moment with people.
Yeah.
That's the big thing I find now. But yeah, about 18, 19 is when I started playing in actual bands in the bars. Yeah.
So what kind of music? Cover songs? What were you doing?
It was mostly original because I wasn't good enough to play covers. Straight up. I've never been much of a cover guy. I enjoy playing drum playthroughs, but I do it completely my own way. I'll listen to the track, but I won't overanalyze and get in my head, because if I do that, the whole thing is just done. It'll just collapse. But if I'm approaching it the way that I would have approached it, with a new kind of invigoration and my approach and my feel, it's good to go. So yeah, that's why I never did the cover thing very much.
But that's what many artists try and strive for, is that individuality, that we can be influenced by other drummers and we can borrow and or steal from them, but you can kind of develop your own sound, which is really kind of a big part of this journey, is to really have that uniqueness of how you play, how you approach it. And that's what makes it attractive to other musicians.
Absolutely. When I write stuff, for the bands that I'm playing in, or the songs that I'm doing for people on a hired basis, I always try to approach it with, what am I going to bring into this that is going to set it apart, that it's also going to be my personal heartbeat stamped to it, that really sets it apart, so that when you hear it, it is me. Be it the tones of the drums, be it the configuration, be it the fill. Again, one of the guys that I was really into in the early live playing stage was a guy named Ray Garraway. And Ray Garraway went on to play in a kind of fusion band blending rap and rock called Chaos from Toronto. And he had a certain style about him that I could recognize his playing without even seeing that it's him playing.
Nice.
And that is it stuck with me from the moment that happened the first time, that is the goal. And that's always the goal when I approach it now.
So what was it about him that was so different? Was it his sound, his setup, the fill, his groove, his time? What was it?
Everything. He had such a staccato play to it, very rigid, but pocket driven, and he played traditional grip, and like way back, like when his hit on the snare, it was like almost out of time. It was so far back in the back of the seat of it that it was like you could only do that, and it was him. Certain fills that he would do were definitely his style of fills, where it was kind of a staccato-y push and then a pull to it. Yeah, I can't really put into words exactly what it is, because he just had something about him, and he's since passed on. So it's sad, but he used to be in a band called Salvador Dream, and obviously Chaos as well. Name Dropper was another one from Toronto.
Wow.
And yeah, just beautiful, 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 beautiful guy.
Well, it's so great how we allow people to kind of influence us in their playing and what we like and what we feel and how it relates to us, like a language. It's like certain words that you're attracted to that you want to hear, and you kind of go that path. That's kind of what happens with music, and specifically with drummers. We get, those that we are influenced by, and those others that, although they might be legends, are not necessarily as influential.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you get the big picture influences, and then you get the local influences, and then you kind of mix them together, and that's where your main path is. So where you're pulling from, and then of course your discovery, your self exploration of playing and voicing and tuning and approach is all, I would say, it's blend into that, where it's some of the big, some of the local.
Yeah. So you're going through all this learning process. So were there other books that you were learning from other than the Chapin stuff? Was that a part of your learning process?
Not so much. It was just the syncopation and Jim stuff.
Yeah.
That was the focal point on it. And then I discovered kind of a jazz type idea, but explored it on my own. With my own approach to it. A guy that definitely influenced me when it comes to the brushwork is Jeff Hamilton.
Oh, great.
I was talking to him about this yesterday, actually. It was pretty cool. I use the nylon brushes from Vader, the Polyflex.
Yeah.
And so we were having a little discussion why nylon versus metal, and there's different applications and different sounds that you want. For the stuff that I do with the single drum theory, the action is more of a percussive nature. It's less soft and smoothie. There is sweeping to it, but there's also that snap that kind of drives it home. And that's for my kind of Americana kind of style playing that I use.
Boy, that's fantastic. Well, listen, Jeff Hamilton, it doesn't get any more of a legend than Jeff Hamilton. I had a chance to interview him also. A dear friend who I've known for many, many years, and just a phenomenal player at so many levels. I've heard him play live many, many times, and he always just blows me away with his musicality, whether he's in a small group or a big band. Jeff's got that kind of ownership in what it is. And he's a guy that when he plays, I absolutely steal ideas from.
Fully.
Totally, man. If I'm going to steal from Hamilton for sure. Tell me about now the Bad Habits Die Hard. When did you finally hook up with them?
Bad Habits Die Hard started in 2009, and it was kind of an amalgamation of a couple other bands that were going around playing punk rock in Alberta. And and since then we put out 2 records, and we're working on our third. Our third right now is a couple songs in doing it remotely. So we're taking advantage of the COVID. This is actually the Bad Habits rehearsal spot as well.
Nice.
And we've rehearsed for a couple of weeks here during COVID, but with everything getting a little bit crazy down here or up here, we kind of called it and decided that we're going to focus on writing the record remotely and doing it that way.
Smart, as so many bands are doing. I mean, we don't know what effect this has. I mean, I have actually lost many people that I know dearly who have passed away to COVID. So, I take this extremely serious. I'm doing all of my lessons online. I'm actually recording a tune for an album also here online. And I'll be doing a TV show pretty soon in early 2021 that I'll shoot from here and send in the footage of both audio and video. And they'll edit this down to play with the band for the television show. And that's how we're going to do it until we kind of get past the craziness of where the world is at right now with this. But it's great to be that cautious. So how would you describe Bad Habits Die Hard? What kind of music? How would you describe the band?
I would say Bad Habits is kind of like it's got a punk rock kind of attitude and progressiveness to it. But I would say that it's more of a rock side, so closer to like a Social Distortion side than say like a No Effects, which is like the fast, California punk rock. I'd say it's more in the backbeat driven punk rock. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm losing you a little bit here on what you're saying here.
Oh, sorry. It's I would say that it's not a California punk rock style. I would say it's more like Social Distortion, that kind of thing. Getting into the more backbeat driven punk rock.
Oh, interesting. And the band, so you got a couple of albums that you recorded with it, and that band, and you did some touring with the band?
This band doesn't tour heavily. We do, weekend stints around Alberta and BC, just because we're all family guys. So it's my main creative outlet, but it's not my touring outlet. For touring stuff, I do hired gun situations for bands and get hired to do the tours. And then I also do production work for Live Nation and do all of Alberta for that.
Boy, that's fantastic. Talk about the touring, because as a freelance, your name gets out, people trust you, they know they can contact you. You get called from a band, they call you up, they send you the tunes, you learn them, and you're off and running.
Exactly. That's literally it. One of the guys, the most notable guy that I've done it for so far would be a guy named Chuck Reagan from the band Hot Water Music. He has a folk kind of element to it, and that's where the single drum theory was created. Doing that, I didn't want to bring a full kit. I didn't want to cloud the instrumentation because it's fiddle, upright bass, and mandolin and acoustic guitar. So, I mean, if you put a full kit into that and really give it, it's going to kind of drown everything out. So I switched to just snare drum and the brushes, and then came up with a style that was kind of accentuating everything, but not overcrowding the tone and the sound. And that worked really, really well. And then since then, I've done 2 records just doing snare drum work for the records.
Boy, that is so smart and so musical and so highly professional that you are designing your instrument for what you need to have at that moment in that musical situation. That is the highest compliment of serving the song and serving the music.
Absolutely. And that's, again, going back to my thinking of playing, that's how I approach all of the playing that I do, is what's needed for this part. Is it just kick drum? Is it just snare drum? Do I need no fills, or do I need lots of fills? Do I want it to be all on the floor tom? And everything kind of comes at me straight from what does the song need. I try to always only play to what is needed.
Yeah. Well, that's the ultimate goal, and I wish more drummers would heed that. Sometimes drummers have a tendency of overplaying, wanting to hear themselves play and fill in every little hole, and it really is always about just serving the song.
I think it's a maturity thing. I think, yeah, a lot of people, like, obviously when I started out, yeah, I wanted to hit every note. I wanted to like fill this thing so full that it's overflowing the top. But yeah, and after a while, I realized, you know what? I don't need 10 toms
Yeah.
on that gig that you're playing for 45 minutes, and it took you like forever to load it in your vehicle to get to the gig. So, yeah, after the first gig, I think I cut my kit literally in half. How many pieces I was bringing, both out of necessity and sheer like I don't want to carry all this. And of course, that changed the way I approached it too, and then that shaped me into being a player that's more oriented on what's needed for the song. And I think that was a big growth for me when that happened.
Well, that really is a maturity level when we realize that it's not about us and or our chops, but there's a bigger issue of the musical expression that we're trying to develop and deliver here.
Fully.
Well, that's fantastic. So tell me about now the single drum theory, because you use this at different clinics and teaching. Explain kind of what that is and how you go about that.
Well, it all started when I was playing with Chuck Reagan in Calgary here. I did a couple of dates with the Revival tour. So again, the idea was a full drum kit's too much for that kind of music, for the Americana folk kind of idea. So I was like, what can I do to kind of still have my footprint in there, but not overpower the whole thing? So I approached it with just the snare drum and brushes, and it kind of snowballed from there. Even Chuck, when he rolled into the gig, he goes, "You just brought a snare?" I'm like, that's what we're doing. And he was like, okay. And that was like a big kind of like, oh, tester point where like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to get fired from this or not? And then in the end, it went off really well. And, since then I've done a couple other bands doing that as the focus, and then a couple of records doing that as a focus as well. Wow. And the tours started when Dave Lawrence from Mapex Canada was like, hey, you want to do clinics? And I was like, well, nobody's going to want to watch my clinic. What do I know? Who am I? And that's what the way I thought in my head, because I'm very much that kind of a person where, I'm always downplaying stuff. And he was like, no, I think you should do a clinic. So he pushed me onto my first clinic, and that forced me to put into words what I was doing on these records and with the Chuck Reagan gig. So in the end, it was a beautiful, beautiful moment and forced me to do this. And at the beginning of COVID, I was actually on an airplane on my way to Toronto to do the whole run of Southern Ontario, Long McQuaid during drum month, or not during drum month, during the Long McQuaid University month, which is like their lessons oriented thing that they do in March. So literally flew there and on the plane, landed, and then it was canceled. So I lost 5 clinic dates right in that one lump sum. So COVID really kind of has put a damp on that side of things, but it's forced me again to focus more on what I'm doing and bring it in and practice more and refine it even more. And I've expanded the single drum theory into a second part, which is I call the +1, which is just adding kick drum. So again, snare drum, kick drum, nothing else.
So no hi-hat, not yet.
No hi-hat at all.
So
just snare drum, brushes, and kick drum. So I call that single drum theory +1.
So this really has the potential to grow even as you build the kit, to maybe even add hi-hats and stuff like that. But this sounds like it's got the potential of a book, series of single drum theory plus one, plus two, plus three, plus toms or whatever. You can really kind of have that where you say focus. When I was younger, we played a 4-piece kit. And that was the kit. Bass drum, snare, one rack tom, one floor tom, hi-hat, ride, crash. Done. That was it. And everyone played that. And it was kind of interesting because in the process, I still, even though I've added, other toms and cymbals to my kit, I still see the kit that way as a 4-piece kit. So what you're doing with the single drum theory is really what they did years ago. Listen, years ago, when I spoke to Buddy and Louis Belston and Max Roach and these guys, you had to prove yourself on a snare drum first before anything else happened. And if you can play a snare drum and create an energy and an expression on that one singular drum, then then you earned that respect. And whatever else you added was now, gravy, as they say. So in this process, and you use this in your teaching and in your clinics, right? The single drum theory?
Yeah, that's use it primarily in clinics. If the student wants to learn how to play Americana music or roots, country, that kind of thing, that's when I show them that side of things. But primarily for that, it's they want to learn the AC/DC stuff. They want to learn that kind of thing. Meat and potatoes, rock and roll. And let's face it, meat and potatoes, rock and roll, man, they pay. That's what pays. That's the money. That's the gigs. If you can do that and do it well, you're always going to play.
Boy, that's interesting how when you say that, just for people to understand and learn. So are you doing teaching online with now COVID that we have here? It has changed everyone's agenda in their life, from musicians not being able to play live, but yet musicians now accepting students and doing these online lessons, which is extremely, a very smart way to utilize our time. So what are you doing around these times now with COVID?
Well, I definitely have switched to online lessons. Again, that was a bit of a learning curve, and it still is, technically speaking. I did end up picking up a couple of things by IK Multimedia to kind of round the ability out so that I could have my kit fully mic'd up and communication lined up, so that you're not overpowering just like a cell phone or an iPad or anything that you're doing that on. Mm-hmm. And the world of difference that made alone, it's huge. But again, students on the other side may not have that kind of setup. So hearing back is a little bit tough, but the actual putting out of the lesson itself is totally adequate now. It's awesome.
So with students that come on, you do it online, you've got, and again, you could use your phone, an iPad, the laptop. It's a very different world now, is how we can communicate with students online.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How have you adapted to that?
How have I adapted to that? I kind of tool my lessons ahead of time. And then if they want to learn a song, I'll make sure that I have the song prepped and learned fully. And then we just kind of jump into it at that point, going through the rudiments that are involved with it, the structure of the song, breaking down the structure, the playing, and in the end, trying to teach them to evolve into being able to play a version of that song.
So the student will come up with an idea of what they like, and you'll kind of, it sounds like you really kind of like design that lesson for that student.
Exactly. Yeah. The way I do lessons is I like to have it so that the kids are still engaged and the people are still engaged and fun. And the only way to really kind of captivate somebody is to show them that they can do it. And if they can do it, and it getting to that point and they play that first groove, you can instantly see the energy and the life flow right up and the excitement. Yeah. And then once that happens, you can just go anywhere with it. It's a beautiful thing, really.
It's pretty amazing when you think about just the fact that when you see these students, even now at faraway distances where they're not traveling to you in person, but even through this means of our technology, that they still can be lifted, they still can tap into their passion for music, they still can learn. This is really pretty powerful that we're doing.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. And it's such a gift to share, because I mean, think about all the things that you get from playing. Your endorphins are up, your excitement level up, your confidence is up. You hold yourself differently because you know you can do something, and that's such a big gift to instill on somebody else. You know.
Such great advantages. And I tell people when I was younger, I had to drive 5 hours one way to go take lessons, specifically with Joe Morello, and take the lesson for a 1 hour lesson, then turn around and drive 5 hours back. So I tell students now that we're online, listen, we just cut down your traveling time. So that gives you more time to practice. So let's get your tail back on the drums and on that practice pad and start learning some more. So it really is a great incentive to have more time to put the hours in that we need.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would definitely be worth the 5 hour drive for sure.
Oh, it was, it really was. And I got a chance to listen to music on the way there, on the way back. So it was listening to music, and I'd always pack the car with tons of different music. So by the time I got there, it was an inspiring day of hearing great music, getting great ideas, then learning these techniques, then bringing it back, listening to more music on the way home, then getting home and practicing. Those really were great days. And there's still great days in that learning process.
Absolutely. I'm sure he got a lot out of you too, though. Your energy, Dom, is unreal. It's beautiful and so inspiring. So I'm sure as a teacher, having a student that's that driven and that excited, I can tell you right now, it'd be an honor.
It was great, great fun. And I tell people, people say, Dom, with all your energy, you're always at like 100 miles an hour. I said, guys, I idle at 95 miles an hour. So I'm good, man. I'm good all the time the way it is. I've got a great, great drummer here who's also involved with production management. Carlos Goodspeed, a dear friend of mine in the Miami, Florida area. He works with the Bee Gees and all these great drummers, Max Weinberg. He's worked with Stevie Wonder, working with Jerry Brown on drums, doing his tech stuff.
Oh, Jerry. I love Jerry.
He's involved with such production. And he said, hi, Jeff, it sounds like you're doing what I'm doing now by working with the production side, which is what you were saying we're doing with Live Nation and the production and the business as well. What skills would you say to the next generation of musicians that it would be wise for them to develop so they are more valuable, whether it's valuable in production or whether it's valuable as a musician? What have you learned in the disciplines that you've learned?
Well, when I got invited to because you don't submit a resume for this kind of a job. They find you. You don't find them. If you're trying to find them, you'll never find that gig. If they find you, it's because you're doing the right things and you're pushing the right way, and you've already done all the research and the knowledge. Now, the knowledge that you need to have is gear related. You have to be people serving, and you have to understand the bigger picture is not your ego. It's everything else around you that's going on. You walk in, do your job 100%, put everything that your knowledge brings to the table out, you'll definitely be noticed.
Boy, that's great, great advice. Carlos, thank you so much. Carlos always has great suggestions and great questions. And we've got people here, just so you know, I mean, this is incredible. We've got Victoria from the Ukraine. Victoria, thanks so much. My gosh, we've got some great, great people here. Sean Preston is here. Oh my gosh, we've got Diego Sanchez. I mean, just people from all around the world that are kind of tapping in. Claude Hoffman from Belgium is with us here, and it's just so great to have people worldwide listening in. So doing the production side, so there's certain levels of discipline that you have to have. You've got to act of a high level of professionalism. You got to show up on time. I mean, that's a whole nother side of skills that you have to have, which can relate to the music side.
Absolutely. You have to really approach things on a level that all your job is to make sure that the artist and the people you're working for are having the best possible day that they have. Because if they're having the best possible day they have, they're going to put on the best possible show they can. Yeah. So that's the way I always approach it. And I always approach it in a kind of let's have fun with this, because I mean, how many people get to do this job for a living? So let's remember that, because that's the number one thing, that if you're having a bad day and you're working on production, if you just take a minute and look around and realize where you are, it's such a gift. It is a huge gift, and not everybody's going to get that chance.
Boy, that was fantastic. Carlos had just responded. He said, great answer, Jeff. come down to Miami and get out of the cold. And if you ever get a chance to get down to Miami, I'll make sure I connect you with Carlos and you get together and be a part of it, because he's in and out of the recording studios all day, helping guys and getting gears together and making it happen. It's just a whole nother world. And Carlos, who was also a fantastic drummer like yourself, finds the balance in all of that.
Absolutely, man. That's the key. Diversification. That is the ticket. I mean, not everybody is going to be able to make a huge amount of money, just playing beats or, playing guitar or anything like that. But if you're able to take what is your passion and turn it into a career that involves all aspects of it, I think that is probably the smartest thing to do, because now you have a fail-safe no matter what. Be it the playing, be it the production assistance, the drum tech work, or the studio work, all of those things all in together, you've created basically a force that you can be pulled to any direction and be completely professional and top dog on.
Well, great advice. So this is great advice for everyone to have, and all those that are listening and that are with us right now, and all those that will watch this later on. Heed these words of advice, because this really is where success comes from. That desire to want to be as professional as you can and be as versatile as you can. These are multiple income streams that we need to have in the craziness of this business now. And here you are, between playing at the band, doing some recording, selling, albums of what you're doing some of the teaching, the single drum theory of what you're doing there, which I think has the potential of being eventually a drum book and a concept for what that is. It's a whole nother discussion that we'll talk about, Jeff, at some point. That has the potential where, if it's working for you and how you're reaching these students, that single drum theory, if put down properly in the way it can be delivered, could be a product that can be used by other teachers worldwide in that process.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping for. That's really what I'm hoping for. I'm still in the process of developing it to get it to the point where I could pitch it to like Hudson and stuff like that, and eventually get it actually properly published and presented so that it could be a tool for teaching and for getting ready for that live gig.
Yeah. Boy, good for you. Good for you. Now I want to talk about you. You worked at a drum shop as a manager for Axe Music for a while there, and that was a whole nother side of now being behind the counter and helping musicians and drummers. What was that like when you did that? About what year was that?
I started at Axe in 2001, and then I left in 2014 and to focus on playing live and stuff like that. Now, when I was at Axe, we started off with like maybe 2 lines of drums. We had AOT, because it was Canadian, and we had Mapex.
Yeah.
Mapex was at the time obviously brand new to Canada, so it was a bit of an uphill sell. In the end, I ended up being the top salesman for Canada for Mapex. So my heart and my soul is invested in this company for years. So being accepted as an artist and again doing stuff like this, it means so much to me, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, Mapex for sure is happy to have you aboard. So dealing with the people behind the counter, what was that like? What kind of patience did you need to deal with people, that kind of job?
Well, my life basically revolves completely around coffee. So that was the number one thing, that I would have kids come in that want to play on the drums, and I had one rule. The one rule was, you bring me a coffee, I will let you play the drums. So I was never out of coffee, and the right kids would, tell the other kids, okay, no, if you want to do that, you got to bring them a coffee. Because we used to have tons of kids come in, and other shops would, shut it down right away. And I was like, no, play the drums, but if you break anything, you're buying it. And I'm going to need your parents' credit card on file. But I would say that the biggest thing for me about doing that was, this time of year in particular was my favorite. Knowing that, the drum kit that's being bought was going to be gifted and under the tree at Christmas, and knowing how much that made me feel such a big part of that person's exploration of something that I get such a huge joy out of. It was such a beautiful gift to me, as well as is to, Bob or Julie or whoever is getting the drum kit.
Yeah.
And I got as much out of it as they did in sales. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Boy, with them bringing you the coffee, that's the beginning stages of pay to play. I like that.
That's how it goes sometimes, right?
I might not have done the coffee. I might have done a bottle of wine, but that's a whole nother discussion. Right?
It's a family show.
That really is fantastic. So you're in the store, you're managing for several years, and you're meeting many drummers, and now you're starting to get familiar with the Mapex product.
Yeah.
So what did you notice about Mapex that was something which all of a sudden really attracted you to? Was it the shells, the sound, the hardware, all of the above? What was it?
Well, all of the above, but the big thing that really hit for me was the wood that it was made out of, because I was dealing with maple walnut and that ply alone. So the Saturn series, which I use live, is Saturns. I use the Obsidian and I use the Orion, and that particular shell has turned into something that I is kind of an exclusive with. Using maple walnut or 100% walnut. And there isn't any other companies that are really doing that style of thin shell maple walnut combination that I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's so unique, and the quality of it is really high, and the price point, especially at this time, was really low. And it was mind-blowing to me that you could get 100% maple kit for like under $1,000 at that time. In the early 2000s, it was like about $1,000 will get you all the shells and the hardware. You still have to get cymbals on top, but for about $1,000, and it would be like ready to play and ready to go, good heads, good everything. So, I mean, for me, it was a really easy sell, even though it was an unknown product at the time. And then once I had poured my belief into it, it was even easier to sell because people can resonate with how I feel about it personally. Yeah. And I think that is the number one thing that sets them apart from other companies is if you got a sales guy that believes in your product 100%, it's going to be easy to sell.
Well, those are great lines, and that's a very, very positive understanding of the product. I mean, with the thin shells, I mean, I love a thin shell, and to have the maple, thin, it's not a strong enough wood to be that thin. So by putting in that ply of walnut, that adds the strength that you need to have still that maple sound, but to have a thin shell. And to me, the thin shell, like a great Stradivarius violin, they make it thin because they want the wood to vibrate. And I've got a Saturn 4 here that I have on this kit back in here in my studio, and I've got a Saturn 5 over here that I've got. And these kits just sound fantastic when I record with them and when students come in. So what do you have there again? You have the Saturn to your right.
I have a Saturn to my right. It's a 24. It's years ago they put out the subsonic kit, and I was really attracted to the subsonic 24 by 20.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a 24 by 20, 12 by 8, and 16 by 16 in the black cherry sparkle. And that is the kit that I call Big Red. I've used it on one of the Bad Habits records. And then on the other side, I have a maple Map of Burl series Orion.
Beautiful.
Now, this Map of Burl Orion is a 4-piece, which is something that they never sold as a 4-piece. And the biggest thing that sets that kit apart from any other Map of Burl kit that Mapex ever made is I have a 12 by 8, the only one they ever made.
Nice.
So that is my baby. I love that kit. I've used it on the second Bad Habits record. I've used it on a couple of high-profile gigs, playing for one of the sports teams here at the Saddle Dome. Wanted something that looked super flashy, but still was visible from way in the back of the room. And of course, the Map of Burl with the knots and everything. That really is a beautiful kit. And then the kit that I'm sitting behind right now is my kind of club kit, and it's an Obsidian. And again, 24, 12, 16. So 12 by 8, 16, 16, 24 by 14. This is a shallow one. I like it. It's
Yeah.
really punchy. Of course, I use the 30th anniversary snare as my main snare for this setup.
What a great snare, right? What a great
Oh,
fat sound and sharp and clear.
fantastic. Yeah. The one thing that I did do that's upgrade on it is I changed it to the control sound head rather than the Ambassador X that it came with. I didn't really like the tone of the Ambassador X. I like a little bit more body,
Oh,
and the control sound by Remo totally was the right one.
yeah, boy, people don't realize that, finding the right heads for how we play and what we're looking for is a whole nother study of research to find out what it is. But I know that drum that well, and I'm sure that head probably makes it just sound even clearer and fatter and does control the sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's more focused, a little bit more throaty too when you're digging into it, but you can still get that kind of Sam Cooke kind of resonance off the edge that you get with just an Ambassador. So.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So you're at the NAMM show. You're with Tony Coleman. Tony Coleman, who I've known very, very well, another dedicated Mapex artist who I've had the chance to interview here. Great, great player. Blues, BB King. I mean, he really is just a deep, deep, player at many levels. And how'd you meet Tony?
Tony was coming through with BB King to play a gig in Calgary, and he wanted to do a clinic, so we ended up doing a clinic at the shop.
Wow.
And I tell you, the first minute of meeting him, like I didn't know him before that, and meeting him, we've become thicker than thieves. That guy, I love that. That guy exudes so much soul and body to his playing, and as a human, I love that man. He's amazing. He's such a huge influence.
Yeah, and you throw on top of that just an absolutely great guy on top of that. Just
yeah,
really beautiful person. So so NAMM. We all understand NAMM, which is this incredible, the National Association of Music Merchants. It's this incredible show with hundreds of thousands of people there. The entire music industry is there. Was that your first time or second time being at NAMM there?
Oh no, this last NAMM, that was my 15th NAMM show, because I used to go as a buyer for acts.
Oh, interesting.
So I go down and look at all the gear and then decide what we're going to carry in the shop. And that was my second year as an artist going, but it was not my first year at NAMM for sure. Yeah, lots of experiences there. I love that show. I'm going to miss it this year a lot.
They're going to do it online as they're going to try and see if they can kind of recreate the kind of fun of meeting everybody. But about 150,000 people attend NAMM at the early part of January in Anaheim, California. I've been going. It's my 44th year that I've been going to NAMM. So I go back a long time with these shows, and every year it's just great to see old friends, see new product, be with the companies. It's just a great hang of understanding and learning the music industry at such a high level. Well, it's glad that you were there. That just tell me before we go about the Drum Chat Hang. Fill me in what you're doing with those, because you've had a chance to kind of interview a handful of people like Rich Redman and Ben Cesar and Chris Hornbrook. There's some serious players that you've interviewed.
Absolutely. Again, doing the production side of things, I've managed to meet some guys that I really look up to in playing, and form these friendships. So I decided to do this thing called Drum Chat Hang, which is basically like a guerrilla style interview, much like this, just over Instagram Live or Facebook Live. And yeah, I've had some pretty amazing dudes be into it, and it's been a really huge amount of fun, tons of fun. And especially with the lockdown at the beginning of COVID, I kind of kicked it back up and had Rich Redman on. I had Mark from Pink's drummer Mark, as well as
Coleman.
Yeah, Mark's awesome.
Mark Schulman, a phenomenal player and dear friend of mine. Great drummer.
Absolutely, great dude. And again, Chris Hornbrook. Now, Chris Hornbrook is on, and he's been on a couple of times. I'm actually one of his guys that he uses as a drum tech. So when I was down at NAMM this year, I was actually teching for him at the Elroy Theater in Los Angeles.
So he was playing with Poison the Well?
Yes, it was a Poison the Well gig. It was the 30th anniversary of The Opposite of December, and he was using a Q drum kit, and it was an incredible night. Super fun.
Well, that is great. Well, you've got a lot of experiences that you have in different aspects of the music industry, and it's really kind of really heartening to see the fact that you're not afraid to spread yourself in different areas of the music industry and learn, because I think you're realizing that all of these things that you're involved with, it helps everything. Your production helps your drumming helps your teaching. I mean, all this stuff kind of intertwines, and of course, meeting all these drummers, that helps the drum chat hang as you're doing that. So there's a lot of things that you're connecting with that I think is really, really fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's all related, man. Everything's related, especially when you're dealing with drums and drummers. Todd Zuckerman told me this one time. He said, if you see a guy in an airport with a stick bag and he's a drummer for sure, you can actually go up and talk to him and it will be totally cool. And he said he could do that anywhere. And again, Todd's a good friend of mine and one of my go-to guys whenever I have clinic questions. He's my clinic guy because obviously he's like the best clinician in the world.
Oh, so. is absolutely fantastic. What a dear player, a dear friend. He's a great musician. And there was a show that was put on by Modern Drummer magazine, the Modern Drummer Festival, that is still available at moderndrummer.com. People can go by, and it's actually a tribute to Neil Peart. And Todd was one of the many, many artists that we had on there. And I said to everybody, if you get a chance, go to moderndrummer.com. $12.99. All the proceeds goes towards the Neil Peart Cancer Foundation.
Absolutely. That's great.
Go watch the show. It's a 3-hour drum show. So the price of the show is nothing compared to the value of the 30-plus artists that are on it. Todd was one of the artists that were on it. He played incredible and wrote a piece, I think in 13/8 for Neil. And and they showcased this festival on September 12th, which would have been Neil's 68th birthday. And so it was a special day. But the show is still available to watch up until the end of January. So I tell people, go there and check it out. And go watch Todd's playing. Todd played incredible.
You know what? As far as dudes go too, that guy is one of my favorite hangs as well. I love just hanging out with that guy, just talking about anything. It doesn't even have to be about drums. It'd be about life. The guy is such an inspiration.
Yeah, he really is. I've had several times to hang with him and perform with him, and he's just a great guy. Great guitar player, too. I mean, he's a phenomenal musician at main level, writer, composer, arranger, and what he's doing. So he's one of these complete players in our craft that really has pushed the art form forward for sure.
Absolutely, fully.
Well, I'll tell you, Jeff, this has been fantastic to have this kind of time with you. I kind of love the fact that we're able to promote and have players like yourself that come on, and I want people to really kind of see that, what you're doing is your passion. You're living this life and you're making this happen. You're involved in several aspects of what's going on. So it's just exciting to see and hear the success of what you're doing. I wish you the best of health. Wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. Let's stay healthy so we can bring in 2021 with some more powerful, great music.
Fully. Again, thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Mapex, for having me on the team and doing these beautiful things like this. They're really, helping through this tumultuous time. So really, I appreciate it. I appreciate you, Dom, so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Stay well, keep in touch, and my best to you for the holiday seasons. And anyone that's been watching, thank you so much. Mapex, Mark Bennett for making this happen, all the Mapex team that they do it, everyone that joined us from around the world, thank you so much. And we'll see you again next Monday. This is incredible. Thank you so much, Jeff. Nice talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. Let's see where I am now. I love this. Thanks, Jeff.